welcome back to another video. Today is a list video. This is my top 10 favorite vampire TV shows. I mentioned doing this when I did my top 10 favorite vampire movies, so TV shows it is. I am obsessed with vampires. I don't hide it at all, not even a little bit. And I honestly don't care. I have been obsessed with vampires since I was 8 years old. 23. So at this rate, it's not going anywhere because I feel like it would have fizzled out by now, so. Yay! So I have watched a lot of vampire media, movies, TV shows, music videos, books, you name it. If it's got vampires, I've at least heard about it, if I have not consumed it. So today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite vampire shows. This was actually really hard to put together because I have seen so many vampire shows and there were bits and pieces that I loved about almost all of them. So picking 10 was difficult for me. There are a few honorable mentions that I wanted to put on the list but didn't. So it's more of like a top 15 if you count the honorable mentions. But let's get into it. Number 10 is Preacher from 2016 to 2019. Now, Preacher is technically a vampire show, but that's not the main point of the story. There's just vampires intertwined with it. The main vampire of the show is Cassidy. Cassidy is an Irish vampire who has a dirty mouth, doesn't really care for being nice, and is in love with someone else's girl, which is heartbreaking. He's in love with a girl that does not love him back. He doesn't like being a vampire, has never liked being a vampire, and eventually, in the last season, we find out why he doesn't like being a vampire, how he became one, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to be a vampire. It's not something that he liked doing. It was violent and heartbreaking and just... it sucks. It sucks. It's a dirty existence, and he did not enjoy it. He was not a vampire who gained a thrill from being a vampire. He hated it a lot. And his story was just so sad and angsty, and he was hilarious. So combined with that, it was art. It was art. Number 9 is the original Dark Shadows. I love every iteration of Dark Shadows in one capacity or another. But the original series, there's just something about it that I love. Now, of course, I love Dracula, and Christopher Lee is my favorite. And he was being his Dracula self while this show was on. So I think that kind of, influenced the show and me. And it didn't start out with vampires. Vampires came later with Barnabas Collins. And Jonathan did a fantastic job. The angst and the drama and everything that's going on. And the different timelines were a little confusing sometimes. But it was just, I just love it. The only issue with this show, of course, is that it came out during a time where a lot of the bite scenes would fade to black. So you didn't really get to see anything, which is a big... that's not cool with me. I like to be able to see what's going on, which is why when it comes to Christopher Lee's Dracula, I like his older, or his newer, Dracula movies because they actually show stuff. If you watch Dracula from 1958, it all fades to black every single time. You watch Dracula AD 1972, they show everything. So there's a progression of events. And there's actually a Dark Shadows movie that I did not know about until after I watched the show. Which basically just reiterates the main point of the show. And they do show bites in that one, and it's a little more gory. Because it came out, I believe, in the 70s, so you could do more. But it's one of those shows that I wouldn't say it's a comfort show for me, but there's just something about it. I love the vibes, the music, the acting. Yes, it's a little wonky and campy sometimes because it's a soap opera. They would film these day after day, and there are mistakes that slip through the cracks because they're getting these done as quick as they can. I mean, there's over 1,000 episodes, I believe. But it was, iconic. Now, of course, they brought it back for the 1990 series, and that's pretty good, too. They show all the bites in that because it came out in the 90s. And there's no issues, no fading to black, no nothing like that. And I do enjoy it, but Jonathan just did a fantastic job. And obviously there's the 2012 movie with Johnny Depp, and that is completely different from the original show. It's very Tim Burton-esque, which makes sense. It's not bad, but it's not the same. And Dark Shadows, I don't know. I just love it. Angelique, oh my gosh. The original actress who played Angelique, she was awesome and evil and scary and amazing. And the short time that she was a vampire, oh my god, was she like my favorite character of all time. She was even better than Barnabas. When she was her vampire self, she just did not care. She was biting everybody left and right. I was like, alright, woman, calm down. But honestly, her and Willie, favorite characters. Barnabas, obviously. But yeah, Vampire Angelique, best storyline of that show, in my personal opinion. Number 8 is Young Dracula, which was on air from 2006 to 2014. Young Dracula is angsty. And if you know me, you know that I love angsty vampires. Love it to my core. I love angsty vampires. The vampire's like, I don't want to be a vampire. This is not what I want. I don't want to hurt people. My favorite thing ever. And Vlad is like so angsty, it's not even funny. He doesn't want to be a king. He doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps. He doesn't want to be violent. He doesn't want to be a vampire half the time. He just wants to be normal, which in his case is not going to happen. And his sister is just a complete and utter biatch most of the time. But, you know, I don't know. I just kind of like her vibe, and I like Vlad's vibe too. I just like the dynamic between the family and the stories they choose to tell, and I wish it lasted longer. But I love Young Dracula. I think one of my favorite moments, I believe it's season 2 or 3, I think. It might have been, I think it was 2, where his sister bites the boy she's in love with in the movie theater. Great scene. Except he dies like 3 episodes later, which is the most depressing shit. Like, he becomes a vampire, this powerful being, right, and gets to be with a hot girl, and then dies. So, that's unfortunate. We just don't talk about that. We pretend that didn't happen. But it's just, the angst. Angst is my favorite. Angsty vampires. I love them. Number 7 is What We Do in the Shadows, which aired from 2019 to now. The final season is airing currently. It made 6 seasons, which is pretty damn good for a show like this. And I wish it lasted longer, but I'm going to enjoy the 6 seasons while they're here. This show is a mockumentary, and I love vampire mockumentaries. The original What We Do in the Shadows movie is awesome. It's obviously got the same vibes because the show is based off the movie made by the same people. And, mockumentary with vampires that are just dumb as rocks is so funny. And the characters that they chose to tell the story through are just amazing. Laszlo's a sex addict who's just says words really funny. Nandor is a warrior whose common sense does not exist. Nadja likes violence, but is also not the brightest. You got Colin, who's probably the smartest of the group, but he's boring because he's an energy vampire. He doesn't even drink blood. He's kind of just there. And, of course, Guillermo. I did a video transforming myself into Nadja from What We Do in the Shadows, if you want to watch that. And I talked about my obsession with the show. But it's humorous, and there is some angst in there. Not as much as some of the other shows, because obviously it's humor-based. There is some gore in there, but it's not, like, scary. It's humorous. And I wish it got 1 million seasons. But 6 will have to do. Number 6 is Blood Ties, which came out in 2007. Blood Ties is based off of a series of books by Tanner Huff. I actually read every single book of this series after I watched the show. And honestly, there's some stuff in those books that I wish they put in the goddamn show. And what usually happens is I watch a show and then I realize it's based on books and then I read the books. So I imagine the actors from the show in the books, then vice versa. And I have done this many times, and sometimes I think the show did it better. Most of the time, I think the books did it better. And in this case, the books did it better. Now, if I remember correctly, there's only 5 or 6 books in this series, so a few of the episodes of the show are based on the books. The rest are not. There's not like, I believe there's 26 episodes. There's not 26 books, or even half that. They based a few episodes off of a direct book, usually a part 1, part 2. I believe the first 2 episodes are based off the first book, if I remember correctly. And, but they changed things for the show. But honestly, oh my god. I love this show a lot. Now, I think it's just because I love Henry. I love the actor. He actually went on to play another vampire named Henry in Being Human, which is funny. He should do it again. Trifecta of Henry vampires. Just saying. And he did a fantastic job, and, you know, so did the girl who played Vicky, and all the actors did a fantastic job. And the first season is awesome. Even parts of the second one are good. It's the end of the second one we don't talk about. It is horrible. The ending of the second season is literally the worst. Not as bad as some other shows. There are some shows that have pissed me off. And this show didn't piss me off, but it was like, I don't know, the finale felt rushed. I don't remember, because I know they got canceled. I don't remember if they were canceled before they filmed that or after, but that ending was not good. So I usually just don't watch the final episode, and I pretend it didn't happen. Show didn't end that way, you know? It's just fine. And, you know, Henry is based off a real person who died at 17, basically became a vampire in this universe. And in the book, he looks completely different from his show counterpart. I believe Vicky looks exactly the same. And, but I don't know, I think the actor did a fantastic job. The chemistry between the two is amazing. I wish they got together, but sadly we don't get to see what happens because it ends, like, terribly. So, but awesome show. Highly recommend. He is angsty. He is more, involved in his vampireness. Like, he doesn't, like, shy away from it. He's a vampire, and he indulges in the delights of being a vampire, but there is angst. And, the angst is nice. Number 5 is Moonlight, which came out from 2007 to 2008. These 2 shows came out around the same time. The vampires look almost identical. Don't know if that was an accident or not. Mick's hair is a little shorter than, Henry's, but, similar. And, in Blood Ties, Vicky is a private investigator, and Henry helps her solve crimes. In Moonlight, the vampire is a PI, and the girl is a reporter who helps with crimes. So it's just kind of interesting they came out, like, the same year. Don't know if they copied each other or if that was just a happy accident. Mick St. John is the most angsty vampire ever. He does not like being a vampire. He just wants to be human again, like the entire show. His goal is to find a cure because he doesn't want to be a vampire. He was turned against his will by a woman he thought he loved, but then kidnapped a child, who turned out to be the girl he eventually falls in love with, which is a little creepy. Just a little, but, you know. And he does not want to be a vampire. He hates it with all his might. And he eventually does become human, but then that is short-lived because he has to become a vampire again to save Beth's life, which sucks for him because, damn, that sucks. And it's all he's ever wanted was to be a human, and he gets it for such a short time, and then it's taken away from him. And this show only got 16 episodes. It doesn't end badly, I would say, but it ends in a way where I just wish there was more. I just want more. And we never got more, which sucks. But, you know, the main actor for Mick went on to do, like, a cop show. I think he's, like, it's like a Hawaii Five-0, I think? Or something like that, which I just find entertaining. So, and the show's got a lot of humor, a lot of angst, a lot of action. He's awesome. That's really all you need to know. He's awesome. And, there is one scene from this show when he has to go back to being a vampire, the scene where he turns back. I have memorized the entire thing to the point that I can recite it like it's a play. That's a skill I'll never need, but it's a skill I possess. So, there's that. Number 4 is Interview with the Vampire, starting in 2022 to now. They're working on season 3 currently. Now, I love the 1994 movie. The sequel is okay. I love the musical. Lestat the musical is my favorite. This show, they just go right into it. Because in the book, it is clear that every vampire is... They don't care what's in your pants. They care about personality. They don't care if you're a boy, girl, or somewhere in between. In the original movie, the 2 actors were straight men. So they didn't do as much stuff because they weren't comfortable with it, which I understand, but you should have hired actors who were comfortable with it. In the show, they went outright, they're in love with each other. They're in a relationship. And I was like, yes, sir. Thank you. Now, in the book, they don't clearly state that they're boyfriends, but it's heavily implied that they're in love with each other. And the show just went, yep, they're in love with each other. And I'm like, yes, I agree. Now, their love is toxic. There is not a, I would say, a good dynamic between the two. And they use my girl Claudia as a Band-Aid. And look how that ends up. Neither of them are, I would say, good people. I mean, they have their issues. They're toxic in one way or another. Armand, oh god. They're all toxic. Every vampire on that show is basically just a running toxic mess. I can't wait till season 3 when we get to see Rocker, Lestat. Oh my god. I am excited about that. But this show, it gives me the angst. It gives me the love story I wish the 1994 movie had. And, it's just beautiful. Is it perfect? No. But damn, is it entertaining. Number 3 is Forever Night from 1992 to 1996. This is another vampire true crime series because I love vampires and true crime, I guess. Vampire detectives, vampire cops, vampire PIs, vampires who help PIs. I don't care. If it's vampire detective work, my favorite. Forever Night involves Nick. Nick is a detective with the police station who falls in love with the mortician, which is awesome. And throughout the show, you get the main story where he's fighting crime using his vampire abilities, but he also does not want to be a vampire. He hates his existence and is trying everything in his power to become human again, eating human food, sitting in tanning beds, trying his best to be human again. And it never really happens. He doesn't get to be human again, and the ending is so bad. I also don't watch that episode. It ended in, I wouldn't say the worst way possible, but it ended in a really terrible way that really just pisses me off. So if you just don't watch the last episode. It's very campy and cringy at times. This came out in the 90s, and, you know, it's not, I would say, you know, top 10 tier content, but it is, there's just something about it I love. And I love the chemistry between Natalie and Nick and the whole story of his existence. And instead of just being in modern day, you get flashbacks to his past. Usually in every single episode, it flashed back to a different point in Nick's life, or maybe he experienced something similar, or it involves in a case somehow, or sometimes it doesn't, but usually. And it's just, I love it. And me and my sister have a running joke, because when he has these flashbacks, he, like, looks off and, like, does one of these. And we joke that maybe he's actually doing that in real time. There's, like, 5 minutes where he's staring off into space before he continues a conversation with someone. We don't know, but we all suspect. It has a lot of just vampire content, and if you love angst, Nick is so angsty. He just hates his existence. And for some reason, I love self-loathing vampires. I don't know why, but Nick, he's amazing. I love him. There is a movie that the show is based on, which has Rick Springfield in it. I believe it's free on YouTube, so I highly recommend watching that and then watching the show. The first 2 episodes of the show use the exact same script as the movie, so you'll be like, wait a second. A little bit of it has changed, but it's basically the same script. And then the rest of the show goes off in different directions. There are 3 books written around the time the show came out, so if you're also interested in reading books based on Nick, there's, I believe, 3 of them. I own all 3 of them because I love him. I love Nicholas. So, highly recommend if you've never seen it, watch it. Watch it, please. Number 2 is The Vampire Diaries from 2009 to 2017. Now, The Vampire Diaries was a show that I found very early on in my vampire-loving career. Twilight started the obsession, and Vampire Diaries was the thing I obsessed over. I used to wake up early for school and I like to have background noise, so I would repeatedly watch Vampire Diaries. And obviously, most of the time it would just be background noise. I wouldn't actually watch what was on the TV, but it was playing. I have seen season 1 through 3 so many goddamn times, it's not even funny. 4 through 8, not so much. I have seen probably 4, 5, and 6, maybe twice. 1 through 3, I can't even tell you. And 7 and 8, I have seen once. I don't think I've ever even seen the finale of the Vampire Diaries, because after Elena left, I started losing interest, which a lot of people did. So, you know, I didn't get as entertained with it. But season 1 through 3, I literally love so much. So much. It's my favorite part of the show, and it's just, because it's got angsty vampires. And me, when I was 10, I thought Vampire Diaries was the best thing I had ever seen in my entire life. It is not. It is not the best thing ever, but it is pretty good. And, you know, I think it's nostalgia for me mostly, but I love the Vampire Diaries. I love the originals. I even liked Legacies, which a lot of people didn't. Were any of them perfect? No. But there was something about the vibes. And I think mostly it was because it was one of the first vampire shows that I got obsessed with. It's very nostalgic for me, as it's Twilight. And I just, whenever I need like a comfort show, I either put on Vampire Diaries, Teen Wolf, or Supernatural. And I can watch Vampire Diaries for hours. You know, it's just, I love it. Before I get to number 1, I have some honorable mentions, because I realized while putting this list together that I have a lot of vampire shows that I love. A Discovery of Witches. I have just started this show, which is why it's not on my favorite list, but I love Matthew and Diana's relationship. I read the first book and fell in love. I haven't read the others yet. I've only seen, I think, 3 or 4 episodes of the first season. I am not far enough in to consider this a favorite show yet, but it is pretty damn good. Kindred The Embrace. This came out in the 90s. It was short-lived and campy and a tad cringy. I don't really like how the show ended. It would have been nice to get a second season to see where the relationship went with the main characters. And of course, my bae, the cop. I love him. Pony Boy in a vampire show. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And it's great. It's based off of Kindred, the Vampire Masquerade. I wouldn't say does a fantastic job at portraying these types of vampires, but it's entertaining to say the least. Being Human UK. I do like the Being Human US version, but the UK version is top tier 100%. It is definitely better than the US adaptation. I am not finished with this show either, which is why it's not on the top 10. I believe I'm halfway through season 2. I like to start things and never finish them. So, we'll get there. But Mitchell he does embrace his vampire side sometimes, and he has done some really bad things, but he's very angsty, specifically in the first few seasons. He just I don't want to be a vampire. Me. And I love vampires who hate themselves for some reason. Angel / Buffy the Vampire Slayer. These are also 2 shows I have never finished. I think I got through season 3 of Buffy, and then Angel, I believe I'm on season 2. And I love Angel as a character. I mean, he's got problems, but I think I like Angel more than I like Buffy, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer, my biggest gripe with that show. It's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but a lot of times she's not even fighting vampires. She's fighting, you know, demons and giant bugs and creatures and shit like that, which is fine. It's like a supernatural before supernatural, but it's also like, if it's called Vampire Slayer, there should be the majority of the things be vampire related. Now, obviously, there are vampires in it, and she does fight vampires. I'm not saying she never fights vampires. Season 1, that's basically all she does. I mean, there are some other stuff, but, you know. But it's just, after, the first few seasons, it kind of downgraded to supernatural, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's, the title. It's dude, she's just a slayer. She could be Buffy the Slayer at this rate. And I know that show has a lot of controversy with, the creator of it, which sucks. Which sucks. The show was good. The creator sucked, so we live and move on. Angel is also really good. It's a detective show. Vampire detectives are my favorite thing ever. I love vampire detectives, vampire PIs, vampires who help PIs. They're my favorite thing ever. Then there's Shadowhunters. Shadowhunters has vampires in it, but the main, story is not vampires, kind of like Preacher was. Shadowhunters is based off the Mortal Instruments books. I read the books after I watched the show. The show is not perfect by any means. A lot of Mortal Instruments fans hate the show. Honestly, I don't mind it. Clary is a tad annoying. Simon is amazing. And Malik is one of my favorite ships of all time. So it's got its ups and its downs. And, but I love it. Now, number one. The number one vampire show on my list is My Babysitter's a Vampire. Woo! I love that show so much. It came out in 2011, lasted 2 seasons, ended in the worst cliffhanger I think I have ever seen in my entire life. It is such a terrible cliffhanger. It still haunts me to this day. My 11-year-old self, when I saw that cliffhanger and realized there wasn't going to be a season 3, cried. I cried over this show. It was my everything for 3 years. The movie came out in 2010 and the show came out right after. It was my everything. I obsessed over this show. And it is campy and cringy and really not that good if you watch it in modern standards. But my brain, it just loved it. I love it so much. I think it's mostly a nostalgia thing for me. I remember waiting to watch this movie on Disney Channel. Like, I waited for it. And I love the show. I watched it whenever it was on. I rewatched episodes. I have seen that show so many times. I can't even tell you how many times I've rewatched that show. Oh my god. Season 1 ending is pretty damn good. Ethan gets bit by Jesse and is turning into a vampire, and Sarah saves his life. And one of my biggest gripes is I wish she didn't save his life, because vampire Ethan would have been cool to, like, see what would happen in season 2. But she saved his life, which is fine. But that is also a scene that I have memorized from the heart. And I can recite word for word. Because I have seen it so many times. It is campy. It is cringy. The jokes sometimes don't even land very well. It's got puns. It's got, it's a kid's show, but it's just, I love it so much. I just don't watch the final episode. Don't watch the final episode unless you want to be traumatized for life. Will there ever be a season 3? No, I don't think so. I really don't think we're going to get another season of this show. I think it has ended, and I think even if they did, like, remake it, I don't think it would have the same vibes. It came out in 2011. 2011 vibes are much different than 2024 vibes, and I just don't think it would land as well. But I love that show with a passion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun talking about these vampire TV shows. I could have added so many more to this list. I realized while making it that I have way too many vampire shows that I love. Now, a lot of these are not in order. They're just shows I do enjoy. I do believe My Babysitter's a Vampire is my number 1 show. The rest of the shows could be moved around the list depending on the day. But those are my top 10 favorite vampire TV shows. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a favorite vampire show that I did not list, comment down below. Maybe I've never seen it. Maybe I should watch it and add it to my growing list. If there's a show that I mentioned that you also like, comment down below. Comment why you like it, why you don't like it. Whatever you want to do. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again next week with another one. Have a fantastic day. Woo!